Srila Prabhupada walked down to the bank of Jalani to see the boat the devotees were using for travelling from village to village. On board he praised the simple life of travelling and preaching. He also went to the Goshala and saw the cows and cows, and he drank a cup of the first sugarcane juice of the season from cane grown on the ISKCON land. As Srila Prabhupada walked through the fields to the proposed site of the Mayapur city, Sarabi described where various buildings could be located. Prabhupada suggested they present their plan to West Bengal government officials and ask them to provide the necessary land. Srila Prabhupada continued to meditate on the Mayapur city, and a few days later he composed a letter to the Chief Secretary of West Bengal asking for help in acquiring land. ISKCON should not be misunderstood as a sectarian religious institution, he informed the Chief Secretary. Krishna's instructions are immediate being of the body were scientific and thus did not belong to any particular religion. Prabhupada also asserted that ISKCON programs, especially the one contemplated for Mayapur, would solve national and international problems through spiritual education. He mentioned features that would be particularly appealing to the Chief Secretary, such as the investment of foreign capital in the project, the flow of tourists who would come to Mayapur, and the hiring of thousands of local workers for constructing and maintaining the city. His description of the project was fascinating. Srila Prabhupada ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 9, the Supreme Character of Jad Bharat. And it's 10. I'll just run through the Atta Vrishala Raja Pani Purusha Pasa Asrig Ashavena Devam Badra Kalim Yaksham Yamanas Tad Abhivaman Trititam Asam Ati Karala Nishitam Upa Dade. Responsibly. Atta. Thereafter. Rishala Rajapani, the so-called priest of the leader of the dacoits, one of the thieves, Purusha Pasho, of the animalistic man, for being sacrificed, Bharat Maharaj, Ashrik Asavena, with the liquor of blood, Devim, to the deity, Bhadra Kalim, the goddess Kali, Yakshayamana, desiring to offer, Tat Abhimantritam, consecrated by the mantra of Bhadra Kali. Asim, the sword. Ati Karala, very fearful. Nishitam, finally sharpened. Not finally. Upadade, he took up. So this is going to be quite gory if anyone wants to leave just now. We've got an upset stomach. At this time, one of the thieves, acting as the chief priest, was ready to offer the blood of Jad Bharat, whom they imagined to be an animal man, to the goddess Kali to drink as a liquor. He therefore took up a very fearsome sword, which was very sharp, and consecrating it by the mantra of Bhadra Kali, raised it to kill Jad Bharat. Responsibly. At this time, one of the thieves, acting as the chief priest, was ready to offer the blood of Jad Bharat, whom they imagined to be an animal man, to the goddess Kali, to drink as a liquor. He therefore took up a very fearsome sword, which was very sharp, and consecrating it by the mantra of Bhadra Kali, raised it to kill Jad Bharat. Oh. So I'll just read the next translation. All the rogues and thieves who made arrangements for the worship of Kali were low-minded and bound to the modes of passion and ignorance. They were overpowered by the desire to become very rich. Therefore, they had the audacity to disobey the injunctions of the Vedas, so much so that they were prepared to kill Jad Bharat, a self-realized soul born in a Brahmin family. Due to their envy, these dacoits brought him before the goddess Kali for sacrifice. Such people are always addicted to envious activities, and therefore they dared to kill Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat was the best friend of all living entities. He was no one's enemy, and he was always absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was born of a good Brahmin father, and killing him was forbidden, even though he might have been an enemy or aggressive person. In any case, there was no reason to kill Jad Bharat, and the goddess Kali could not bear this. She could immediately understand that these simple dacoits were about to kill a great devotee of the Lord. Suddenly, the deity's body burst asunder, and the goddess Kali personally emerged from it, and in a body burning with an intense and intolerable effulgence. Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki. According to the Vedic injunctions, only an aggressor can be killed. If a person comes with an intent to kill, one can easily take action and kill in self-defense. It is also stated that one can be killed if he comes to set fire to the home or to pollute or kidnap one's wife. Lord Ramachandra killed the entire family of Ravan because Ravan kidnapped his wife, Sita Devi. However, killing is not sanctioned in the Shastras for other purposes. The killing of animals and sacrifice to the demigods, who are expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is sanctioned for those who eat meat. This is a kind of restriction for meat eating. In other words, the slaughter of animals is also restricted by certain rules and regulations in the Vedas. Considering these points, there was no reason to kill Jad Bharat, who was born in a respectable, highly exalted Brahmin family. He was a God-realized soul and a well-wisher to all living entities. The Vedas did not at all sanction the killing of Jad Bharat by rogues and thieves. Consequently, the goddess Bhadra Kali emerged from the deity to give protection to the Lord's devotee. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains that due to the Brahmana effulgence of such a devotee as Jad Bharat, the deity was fractured. Only thieves and rogues in the modes of passion and ignorance and maddened by material opulence offer a man in sacrifice before the goddess Kali. This is not sanctioned by the Vedic instructions. Presently, there are many hundreds of thousands of slaughterhouses throughout the world that are maintained by a puffed-up population mad for material opulence. Such activities are never supported by the Bhagavad school. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranvalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So very exciting. Kali has decided to burst out of the deity, and there's a very gory picture, isn't it, of goddess Kali. Oh, there it is, chopping the heads off and drinking the blood. So, not a vegan pastime. And then, of course, you could say, well, they got what they deserved. Or you could be very compassionate and think, what a shame. But they were overpowered by, and Srila Prabhupada says they had the audacity to completely disregard the Vedic injunctions, and so even the Vedic injunctions, when it recommends killing an animal under certain circumstances, doesn't recommend killing a human. Certainly doesn't recommend killing a Brahmin. So it kind of casts light onto the unfortunate situation of having people being not properly educated as to be able to discriminate what should be done and what shouldn't be done, and the person's character, being able to appreciate who is of good character and who is not of good character. But for Shudras, that tends to be more difficult for the Shudra class of society anyway. And unfortunately, if we have a democracy, then that means the majority of people who aren't so well enlightened get to have a say on who should be a leader when they maybe don't have the best ability to discern the best qualities that a leader should have, whereas the more intelligent class of men would have. Anyway, because the whole system right now is broken down, and we have all kinds of obviously not qualified leaders. It's very, very rare for anyone to be that qualified in the age that we're living in, wherever they are, whatever position they take. So here, they decided they dared to kill Jad Bharat, who was a friend to everyone, and Goddess Kali could not bear this. So then Prabhupada goes on to clarify in the purport when killing is allowed. So if one approaches you with a deadly weapon with an intention to kill you, and if one tries to set fire to the house or pollute or kidnap one's wife, and then Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain how Lord Ramachandra killed the entire family of Ravan because Ravana kidnapped his wife. So in exceptional circumstances it is allowed, but in general then there's other ways. Non-violent communication is recommended. Non-violent solutions are recommended. But Goddess Bhadrakali emerged from the deity, and she gave protection. The effulgence of Jad Bharat fractured the deity. Only thieves and rogues in the mode of passion and ignorance. So isn't it interesting that if you're not in the mode of goodness, then you're automatically in with the thieves and rogues, because this is the type of character that you'll develop in the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance. So not sanctioned. It's not sanctioned in the Vedas, and so there's the criterion: is it sanctioned in the Vedas? Whatever we're doing, how we, like they're wanting to put a book together right now. They're having a meeting on what type of book should be put together for the British public, and they've been having some talks on it. And I think it would be very useful when the lockdown finishes that we have a pamphlet we can hand out called Why the Lockdown Had to Happen, because people will be trying to make sense of it. And why did it have to happen? Are we clear on it ourselves? Why did it have to happen? Why could we not keep going on the way we were going on? And what do we need to change? So obviously it would help if we were following the Vedic instructions, and if we were becoming free from the modes of passion and ignorance. And so then Srila Prabhupada directly pinpoints one sign of that is in the many hundreds and thousands of slaughterhouses. So that's interesting, that the turning point will be that the slaughterhouses start to disappear. That's when we know society is starting to align again with how we should be behaving, and that we're getting free from the modes of passion and ignorance. We see the slaughterhouses starting to diminish. Hundreds and thousands. So there's so many billion animals killed every day on the planet. And even if you don't believe in karma and you're a hard-headed, materialistic person who only believes in what he can see in front of him, then you can check out the pain wave theory. Have you heard of that, the pain wave theory? PWT. It's by Einstein. Einstein had the theory that when you kill something, the pain goes into the earth, and if you kill enough things, then it causes an earthquake. pain wave theory. So, how many earthquakes we have to have before we wise up? This is like a type of earthquake, in one sense, when there's a disturbance. Yesterday, for the Bhakti class, we did Om Panam Adapanam Adam Punat Punam Adachite Punasha Panamada Punameva Vishishite. Everything is perfect and complete. So if you have a clock and it's perfect and complete, and then you drive a screwdriver through the face of it, then you can't really complain that the clock is not keeping time so well anymore. So the Vedic injunctions are there. They come with the creation of the instruction manual, and they're showing you how to maintain the clock nicely, so that everything can go in a very orderly and precise way. So if you decide to disregard, then you can't complain that the clock's not working properly. In fact, even when the clock's not working properly, it's not working properly completely and perfectly, incompletely and imperfectly. So if someone that has some handicap or some difficulty, then that's a perfect and complete reaction for an imperfect and incomplete action that he performed to deserve that. That's how karma works. So everything actually is perfect and complete. Even the imperfect and incompleteness is a perfect and complete reaction for the incomplete and imperfect action that took place in the first place. So everything is 100% uniform, one way or the other. Everything balances out. Any questions or comments?
Commentary about the thing, the last point Sri Prabhupada makes about hundreds and thousands of slaughterhouses. He says something about, in the purport it says something about this is like a symptom of like a mood of sense gratification. It's not like mad, maintained by a puffed up population mad for material opulence. Yeah. It just reminded me of the grouse mowers, like like a lot of land, especially in Scotland, is maintained just so that rich people can go and shoot birds. And those birds are not like, they're not really, they don't fly very much, they're big fat birds and there's no chance of them getting away. And so it's like at the expense of, they have to put up with so much criticism for that action. And now, meat eaters in general and people who are not really concerned about the environment, who are just mad for material opulence, they have to create sort of private societies or societies of rich people so they can just go and do these things without having to be chastised or without having to be embarrassed or so it's
I was thinking of divine and divine natures. It's interesting the way the mentality works, because you would think, well, what's material opulence got to do with killing things? So how is it linked? So in the divine and demoniac natures, it says the demoniac person thinks, this is the psychology, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more. So much is mine now, and it will increase. I am the Lord of everything. I am the richest. There is none so powerful. And he is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. So mode of ignorance, mode of passion. So then, by killing animals, it kind of asserts that there's no God, because I'm able to just go over and kill things and do things which are obviously not sanctioned by God. So I'm proving that God doesn't exist. I'm establishing my superiority by flagrantly disregarding all restriction. And in that way I'm establishing that I am an authority, you see. So you see how it works, how implicated they become. So the maternal energy is very malleable. Oh, okay, so you want to do this? Okay, and you want to do this? Okay, you want to do that? And then eventually, then they go so deep in, and then Krishna says, I cast them again and again into demonic species of life, so it becomes more and more inauspicious the more they tread down that path. So it's interesting, isn't it, how maternal opulence, because the maternal opulence, that substantiates their position. Everything's okay, and increases the illusion that somehow or other they're going to remain here permanently. Whereas, personally speaking, myself now, as I approach I'm over the hill and down to the valley of death. I'm approaching 60 now. So, what's the point in trying to make any big plans anymore, you know? Trying to get a big castle or do some big thing, have some big plan in the material world. Now the energy is going, and maternal opulence is not really going to distract me enough to consider it really worthwhile taking on the idea that God really doesn't exist, and I'll prove it by accumulating maternal opulence. So the maternal opulence helps to reassure the demoniac person that everything is okay. As long as he's accumulating and establishing himself, I will give charity, I will be aristocratic, I will be seen as a great person, I will have people around me that I've bought. Of all the opulences, there's wealth, strength, beauty, fame, renunciation, and beauty. The most intoxicating opulence is the opulence of wealth, because with wealth you can buy wherever beauty, strength, fame, knowledge, or renunciation would give you. You can buy it. You can just, as long as you've got enough, you can buy anything in the material world. So unfortunately, that seducing nature of the material energy, especially through wealth and material opulence, then inclines living entity to tread a very inauspicious path. And I just read a nice thing the other day. If you want to make a plan, Srila Prabhupada said, make a plan humbly to Krishna. Put the plan forward humbly. So then there is a chance Krishna will be pleased. So if you want to make some plans, like Srila Prabhupada had big plans for Mayapur, but it was all on the understanding that this is to please you, that if it pleases you, can we have a big facility, can we do so much? Otherwise, Srila Prabhupada would have been satisfied just to stay at Radha Damodar and chant. So we want to do so many big things if it will please the Lord. If the Lord is pleased, then allow this to take place. Yeah, so it's interesting how this happens all in the midst of, I mean, you don't really, you know, Jad Bharat, he was a deer. First of all, he was a devotee minding his own business, then he got involved with a deer, then he had to come back as a deer, and then he came back and he wanted to just keep out of the way, so he plays the part of being a dumb person, and then suddenly he's grabbed by these Durga worshippers, and then Goddess Kali jumps out and attacks them. So yeah, Prabhupada saying presently there are many hundreds and thousands of slaughterhouses throughout the world that are maintained by a puffed up population, mad for material opulence. So he mentions material opulence twice. So the process of extricating ourselves from the material illusion is to reduce opulence, reduce material opulence. In the 25 things, essential things that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, he says, as our attraction for material things increases, so wanes the spirit of devotion, isn't it? So the more material opulence that comes in, then the more the spirit of devotion will decrease. And he saw that when they started getting nice marble temples, how this was starting to happen. Whereas before they'd been quite simple, you know. And in the words of Steve Jobs, he said, always stay hungry. Don't become fat and comfortable. Srila Prabhupada said, don't stay back at the temple and be fatty. Go out and preach. So a dead man cannot preach. So if you are feeling a bit deadened, then when you go out and preach, it will liven you up. That'll be interesting to go back out and feel the pulse. Anyway, whether we get a pamphlet printed up why it had to happen or not, we can still explain that to people, because all the answers are there in Bhagavad Gita and the books that we distribute. And we can just encourage people to look at things in a different way. So, any questions or comments? I'll read that again. All the rogues and thieves who had made arrangements for the worship of Goddess Kali were low-minded and bound to the moments of passion and ignorance. They were overpowered by the desire to become very rich. Therefore, they had the audacity to disobey the injunctions of the Vedas, so much so that they were prepared to kill Jad Bharat, a self-realized soul born in a Brahmin family. Due to their envy, these dacoits brought him before the goddess Kali for sacrifice. Such people are always addicted to envious activities, and therefore they dared to try to kill Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat was the best friend of all living entities. He was no one's enemy, and he was always absorbed in meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was born of a good Brahmin father, and killing him was forbidden, even though he might have been an enemy or an aggressive person. In any case, there was no reason to kill Jad Bharat, and the goddess Kali could not bear this. She could immediately understand that these sinful dacoits were about to kill a great devotee of the Lord. Suddenly the deity's body burst asunder, and the goddess Kali personally emerged from it in a body burning with an intense and intolerable effulgence. Very dramatic, yeah?
Yeah, it's interesting that there is an injunction that allows to kill animal in front of the deity, but they went an extra mile, they thought, okay, you used to sacrifice.
Well, they call them a man-animal, right?
Yeah.
That's how they're trying to justify it.
Yeah, they kind of changed a little bit, and they looked like for them, that they were doing extra mile, they're gonna please the deity more and etc. So it's how important is to get our Sambandha understanding of Krishna consciousness right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you may think that we're gonna go extra mile by adjusting something, but it can have an opposite effect. Even the over endeavor, for example, can be considered detrimental to Krishna consciousness, going out of balance.
Srila Prabhupada said one of the diseases of Western conditioning is the tendency to want to change things. So when they take fish in Jagannath Puri, they say, oh, it's sea vegetables. And then when they want to kill a man, they say, oh, he's a man animal. So they want to change, slightly tweak things. Well, it's quite almost there, you just tweak it a little bit, then it'll be spot on. So as soon as you start tweaking things, go into what you think. And that seems to be like a sign of intelligence, isn't it? That's how a great Muni is considered greater than the others, have even come up with something a bit different than the rest of them, So they all compete. It's like a kind of pseudo-intellectualism. Wherever someone says they have to kind of disagree with that, then that shows they're intelligent. If they just agree with it and just repeat what the person said, oh, well, that means you're just dull because you weren't able to come up with something better. So you can't do that with Vedic. The Vedic is That's it, a chapati is never triangular shaped. The chapati is round, and you can't reinvent it. The kartal, mridanga, chapati, the incense, everything that we have, that's it. It's perfect and complete. You don't have to interfere with it. Maybe in the future, for busy pujaris, they'll have a machine that rings a bell, and the heat lamp can go around in circles. So I'm saving so much time. I've got this new invention. I can get the arti done while I'm sewing my socks or something, But everything is as it is, and so it should be taken like that, and not ruined, not changed.
I heard recently, when I was listening to a lecture or a podcast, and one disciple of Radhanath Swami asked him, "How are you?" And he said, "I'm suffering, Maharaj." And Radhanath Swami said, "Well, suffer happily." So I was wondering, quite often we quote the verse that says this material world is a temporary place of misery, that there's no possibility of utopia in the material world. But, is acceptance, we may say that in Satya Yuga everyone understood the goal of life, but still the demigods praise Kali Yuga. So is it sufficient that people understand that life is suffering and that we should become humble and accept it? Is that a goal of ISKCON? Because it would seem that it's not the goal to bring about a kind of materially perfect society, because Krishna says that, it's temporary and full of misery. But are we trying to help people accept that? Or are we actually trying to, is the goal to overcome that in some way, because Srila Prabhupada's here and Lord Chaitanya's come, and it's like there's an opportunity for a utopia now?
Enjoying is an interesting, because we tend to think of enjoying as a selfish thing, but if we take it to on a deeper level, then you can share with people their problems, and it's referred to as enjoying their pain, which doesn't mean that you're kind of like drooling over them while they're in extreme suffering, but it basically means that you're empathizing with the person, and you're connecting with them, deeply connecting with the person, to show the person that he's not alone and that you're there to be with him. And so you take that as a great opportunity to bond with the person and show him, that you have compassion. And then that helps the person then to deal with that. So the pain doesn't go away. There was one lady, she was asking, she said, "Can you come over and play with my pain?" And she was getting quite sad of everybody being around her and just crying and feeling sorry for her. That's what people were thinking that they should do, I should feel really sad and I shouldn't be happy. Of course, that was just making the woman feel more and more depressed. And what she needed was somebody that was going to be around her that would just be very uplifting and very positive, about life and celebrating the joy of life. And so then that helped her to not feel, because she was feeling guilty that she was making everybody else feel so sad, you see. So she said to him, "Can you come round and play with my pain?" And she used to really enjoy him coming along because he didn't feel sorry for her, you see. So showing compassion is a great art, and it is the highest level of enjoyment, and we deny ourselves this opportunity to be able to do that. If we do become selfish, we miss out on something much higher. So that ability to refine our understanding of what happiness is or what enjoyment is what we're doing right now is through the process of purification. the first quality actually, there's 26 qualities that a devotee has, and the very first quality listed is kind. The devotee is kind. So we're trying to cross this ocean of anartha-vritti, unwanted things, and the shore, first quality on the shore that we bank on after getting across this ocean would be kindness. And when we experience that we can show kindness, then we'll experience the highest level of enjoyment and happiness. And this is what people are not aware of. They're behaving in ways which are not going to fulfill their needs. You cannot fulfill your needs at the expense of somebody else. Although it may seem by shooting a grouse or killing an animal, it may seem that I'm going to fulfill my needs now. But it will only be on a very, very shallow, superficial level. Where on a much deeper level, your sense of worth will be very, very devalued if it's at the expense of others. Whereas if you, we had a little bird flying to the window outside in David's room, and it broke its neck, but it wasn't dying. It hadn't yet died, but it was in a lot of pain. So we took it down to our house, and we played Srila Prabhupada's bhajan, and its chest went up, and then it very deeply sighed, and then it left its body in a very peaceful way. And we cried a little bit, we felt a little bit sad, also it left its body. But there was a lot of kind of satisfaction there also that we tried to help it in some way, on its journey home. So we're the only ones that can really experience that real happiness, because we're the only ones that really know how to show compassion to the soul. Like that soldier that got shot, and everybody crowded around him, and he was dying, and then this devotee pushed him in front and put his face right up to the soldier, and the soldier goes, "Who are you?" And he says, "Krishna." And the soldier went, "Krishna," and then he left his body. So only devotee can do that. Only devotee has that knowledge to be able to do that in the first place. So we may be surrounded by so many suffering situations, and we have to shine the light in and show how actually, as Rumi said, the wound is to allow the light in. That's a saying from Rumi. Anyway, it's not just words, you have to be able to do it, to be able to show people compassion, and to develop the strength of character to be able to show that compassion. And that will really help people actually. Just having the knowledge and repeating slokas to people is not going to have the effect the same as having that compassion, pure intention. To know. We live in a very judgmental environment right now. That's why there's all these, don't judge me, don't class me as this, don't call me that. We're trying to counteract what is there, and then we become judgmental about being judgmental. We're supposed to not be judgmental, right, and judge people. And then suddenly, but you just call them out. Oh well, you're judging me, I'm judging him. You're judging me, that I'm judging him. Oh, that's okay. But it's the same. It's the same thing. They're all just judging each other. It's okay for me to point at you because you're pointing at him. But surely it just shows that it's not good to point at anybody then. So why? So then if it's not good to judge, then stop judging him. Just try and help him, then just try and enlighten him why this person is no worse than anybody else. They go up to a boy, the boy's been hitting a boy, so the teacher goes up to the boy and hits the boy. Don't you hit him, okay? And smacks him. So the boy goes thinking, so that's what you have to do if you want to get things done around here. You have to hit people. That's all the teacher teaches the kid. It doesn't teach the kid it's wrong to hit. It teaches the kid it's right to hit. If you want to get what you want, just make sure the teacher's not looking, and you'll get it. So it's very simple. We simplify the nature of intelligence is that it can simplify things, because the mind makes everything very complex. So it's very simple really. We want to have genuine compassion, and that genuine compassion is where real happiness is, because real happiness is a symptom of experiencing real love. and to feel and express real pure love is the highest happiness. It said that when you can show love, then you tread on sacred ground. Like they say, the spot becomes a place of pilgrimage. Bhakti-siddhanta said, any place where discourses on Hari take place become places of pilgrimage. So anywhere that you can give your fellow man some information about Hari, that becomes sacred ground. You help that person on his journey out of the material world. You know? And you could be the one, the very first one to do that, to turn him, to make him think. You know? Any other questions or comments? What's interesting about our judgment as well is if you decide you're going to make some judgments about people, then it's more of an indication of where you're at than where the person's at. It's like a little example. I don't mind cleaning things, so when I see something dirty that somebody else should have cleaned, it's not such a problem to me because then great, well, at least I can go and clean. It's left it for me to clean. But if I hate cleaning and I see something dirty, then I really hate the person for doing that. So it's more an indication of where I'm at by the judgments I'm making of others than the person I'm judging. You know, for whatever reason the person left it dirty, maybe he was distracted, maybe he just got told that his mum's had an accident, or whatever it is, you know, and he's become distracted, we don't know. So if we become all upset and intolerant, that's more our problem than theirs. Shishikari Tharmata Shashiki Jai. Shri Kansinath Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Giridhari Lal Ki Jai. Jai. Bhagavan Ki Jai. The problem with judgment is when you judge, there's always got to be a punishment after it.
It's just about learning shlokas and also compassion. There's a verse in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu that devotional service performed without reference to Vedas, Puranas, Pancharatas, etc. must be considered sentimentalism, and it causes nothing but disturbance to society. So there's like two things, like on one hand just knowing shlokas and not being compassionate, that's useless, but just being compassionate, not on a basis of the scripture, shastras, guru and sadhu, that's also not good. And
yeah, there was a lady.
That's what Arjuna's happened to Arjuna.
Yeah, there's a story that illustrates that. There was in the days of yore, when they didn't have proper like rubber things, you know, to rub out the pencil. There was an architect, and he used to come every day to get some dry bread from this lady, and he would use the dry bread to rub on his architect plans, you know, and that would take the pencil away. So she noticed that he looked so downtrodden that he had blood in his fingernails, but it wasn't, it was ink, you know. And she was thinking, he's so poor that only he can afford some dry bread. And she thought, tomorrow I'm going to give him a special treat. I'm going to put some butter in with the bread, so at least he can have a nice sandwich, you know. So he comes back an hour later and he's completely, he says, you've ruined, I've just rubbed all this butter all over things. It's taken me months to do. I've got to do the whole thing again, you know. So she did it with good intention, but the road to hell is paved with good intention. So she was being compassionate, but she didn't have the full scoop on what was going on, you know. So yeah, just being sentimental and, you know, hugging people and patting them on the head is not going to be sufficient for helping the person.
Just to reflect on that, I mean, if that was the first time she'd done something like that, then it would be an opportunity for her to become introspective and understand, you know, that she did have a good intention, and she may even know that quote, you know, So she may reflect, okay, the road to hell is filled with good intentions. Now I understand that. I've been thinking about that quite a lot recently, that quote. I don't know where it's from.
Which quote?
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yes, but when you said that only devotees or only thoughtful devotees have the ability to actually be compassionate, it's like really understanding the nature of the heart. It's understanding the difference between the mind, the heart, the conditioning, the modes of nature. And so that even if we understand the Shastra, and even if we understand the process, but if we're not practicing the process of self-realization, we won't be able to refine our intentions. So even we may remind ourselves that our intentions, if they're not based on deep understanding or deep self-realization, we may understand that that's not sufficient. But even understanding it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be able to change that automatically. But it could be like it's an art and a nitty, isn't it?
It won't happen easily, and that's why you have to be a little bit patient. And also, you have parts of you. You have different parts of you. One part of you does something. Like one part of the lady was, I want to give this guy some butter. And another part of her will be really angry that she's made this mistake. So when he does chastise her later on, then she has to have both parts. She has to realize, no, that was valid. You did want to do something nice. And okay, yeah, that was the wrong way to do it. She can't just write herself off, you see. So you have to be compassionate also to yourself. In fact, the first person you have to show compassion to is yourself. So you have to start learning the art of how to do that. You know what that means, or what showing compassion to you means. Showing compassion to yourself would mean organizing yourself in such a way that you're getting the most amount of results out of the least amount of endeavor. That you're healthy, well rested, well fed, a fluent, articulate, joyful individual. That would show that you're showing that you're managing yourself nicely, and then we can move on then to doing the same to others. Whereas if you're not able to do it with yourself, there's very little chance you'll be able to do it with anybody else. You may start off with some good intention, but your ability to maintain and sustain the ability to nourish somebody else will be heavily compromised because you won't be able to do it yourself. So she may have got into trouble with her boss, may have lost her job, and she could go away, but she could still kind of reassure herself, no, the intention was really, really good. It's a wonderful thing to be like that. Don't become hard-hearted and cruel to everyone now, because trying to be nice to people doesn't seem to work. Just like you say, you have to refine it. Okay, so I have to find ways of how I can communicate my concern and compassion to others so that it is effective, It's not so easy, because there's lots of people out there, wonderful people out there, very sincere people who are fine parents and very responsible, working in the National Health Service. There's so many wonderful people there, so many brave soldiers, there's so many good people that are out there. And they would be so much happier if they could really, really focus their endeavors in the way that would be the most effective. And that does require education. And it does mean at times that you will make mistakes, so that's accepted. You will at times make mistakes. But your endeavor is to come to the point of being a better person and making a difference in the world. A good difference in the world, so the world's a better place for you having been on it for whatever period of time you are. You know, we'll end on this actually, because this is a nice kind of morbid thing to round everything off with. If you could go to your funeral, just mingle with the people. You know, maybe you could have a really good moustache and a pair of dark sunglasses, and nobody knows, you know. And they're all, Jabba was such a nice guy, you know. But whatever it is, what would you like them all to be saying about you at your funeral? And whatever it is, just start doing it now, so that they do. Not that they're all at your funeral saying, that's such a, that guy was such a pain, wasn't he? She shouldn't have took him so long, I wish he'd done it 10 years ago. So you can project yourself forward to be at your funeral, and what would you like them to be saying about you? Yes, Congruent ki, Shiva ki,
Jai.
Kuprimanandi.
Haribol. Grace Adhoksaja Krishna Prabhu ki.